it's you. Hello and welcome. My name is Linda. Welcome to Jar of Marbles. I hope that you've had a great day. Today we're going to be talking about, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? I mean, it sounds so cheesy, doesn't it? I think that's why I really chose the subject, because there's so much to talk about it, around it, and I thought that maybe we would just sort of play around with a few ideas. I think there's a decent story in there somewhere. I hope you enjoyed that as well. And let's go. Oh, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Has anyone actually ever had that said to them? I remember back in the day, that did actually happen to me. Now, while pickup lines aren't sustaining, there are things that you should keep doing for women over 60. By the time you've reached 60, you've pretty much heard a lot of the cheesy pickup lines. Me, myself, I am my own muse. I am the subject that I know best. Nothing is absolute. Everything changes. And I have learnt to welcome change because experience tells me I'm moving on, and I kind of love that. So as a younger woman, change sometimes would be happening around me and I wouldn't even be aware of it, and I could quite honestly say at different stages of my life, no idea how I actually got there. But we get a little bit clearer in our thinking. We're able to go, oh yes, that's right, I made that decision. But about being 60, there's no guilt in pampering yourself. For myself, it's usually of the evening. I have my shower, I do my exfoliation, hydration, skincare. Sometimes our schedules change. It is not something I want to let go of. It is extremely important that we take care of ourselves. Now, of course, this can apply to any woman of any age and any man too. We have to take care of ourselves. The biggest organ in our body, of course, is our skin. Now, the benefits are it gives me that me time and it makes me feel good, and I really need it for myself. The wear and tear on our skin after 60 is far greater than when we're younger. Sunscreen on my arms. I do all I can to look after my skin, and so none of us should really stop doing that. A lot of us, by the time we've reached 60, have been moving through menopause, possibly still moving through it. Sadly, we can put on extra weight. We're not as busy anymore, kids, career. Falling into our 60s can have disastrous outcomes, especially if we're not exercising regularly. Even if it's just walking, and walking is all you can do, that's awesome. And maybe you can have some light weights for your arm strength. So keeping your muscles strong and your bones strong is so important, because we don't kind of bounce off the floor anymore if we do have a fall. So important to understand that it's just not our muscles, it's our bones. So you can get your body back. Nothing extreme, just baby steps. So, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Has anyone actually said that to you? It has been to me. As I recall, I laughed, as it sounded, well, funny, and this person was almost relieved that I laughed, but it did break the ice. Turned out he was a friend, he was the brother of a friend of mine that I had just recently met, and he was very charming and really nice. He had recently moved to my town, and he decided that I was the one. He was a really good-looking guy, and he looked a little bit like a young Elvis, and he could dance like him as well. I know this because sometimes when I'd open up the front door, he would be on the front porch dancing like Elvis, so it was really quite spectacular. And he really was a bit of a spectacular specimen himself, a lovely person. But he was too full on for me, really young. I think I was turning 21 and he was 19, so he was just too young for me. And the reality is I just had no interest in a new boyfriend, but he truly was relentless. He used to follow me slowly in his car as I was walking up the street, and I really actually didn't like that, because not because he was creeping me out, it was just, he just wasn't going to leave me alone. He would be ringing all the time and telling my mother, and then I'd be telling my mother to tell him that I wasn't home. And in the end, she'd come through and just say, I am not telling him you're not at home. For God's sake, speak to him. So when the phone rang, and I figured it was him because it was happening so much, I would hide, usually under the bed. And Mum would be running around the house going, I know you're here. For God's sake, speak to this boy, But anyway, I've just got to say that what really, really turned me off the whole thing was at the time I was doing the show South Pacific, and as it was coming along to finally we're going to be doing the show, people were coming up to me and congratulating me. And I just thought they were congratulating me about the show. But no, unbeknownst to me, this guy had been telling people that we were engaged. He'd gone ahead and got all this furniture and an apartment. The only problem was he hadn't told me, and I think he probably figured that I probably wasn't really going to be happy. And a little bit of a backstory with him was that his mother was a spiritualist. Now, at the time, did not know what that was, just sounded very interesting. And prior to meeting me, when they had lived up in the North Island of New Zealand, he had been paralysed from the neck down and after playing rugby, and apparently he wasn't going to be walking anytime soon. But he recalls his mother with some other people laying hands on him, and he was healed. But also, after seeing his doctor, who was amazed by it, was saying, "You're not to play rugby again," which he didn't. So I had to tell him, look, this wasn't really going to work out. And he told me that if I didn't go out with him, he would have to return back up north. And if he did, he had a feeling that he was going to die. Well, that was it for me, as my other boyfriend that I'd had of 6 odd years was always threatening suicide, threatening to beat up my father if I wouldn't go out with him. So this guy's story, unfortunately, was really lost on me. We did go on a few dates, and I just wasn't ready for anything serious, and he was. But it turned out not long after he left to go back up north, he actually was killed. And I used to just see flashes of him, usually in railway platforms as I was whizzing by in a train. It was really it was distinct. It was definitely him. Because after a while you go, okay, this can't be happening all the time. And I still and will forever remember him because he was a really lovely person. He was talented and determined. And I think cliches have their place in the realm of tongue-in-cheek and fun. It's kind of sweet. You know, that song, Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel. If you have a remotely, romantic bone in your body, it is kind of cute. I don't use the word cute lightly either. I recall many years ago, one of my best friends was called Beautiful, and I was referred to as cute. The message I got is, you don't want to be cute. I'm over it now, of course, but it got worse over the years with a saying that was getting around the traps in the 1970s, which is, cute means interesting but ugly. So that confirmed everything for me. Well, at least I was right not to feel flattered at being called cute. You can stick that in your ear, fella. Now, check the back of her shirt. Does the tag say, made in heaven? I mean, who thinks of this stuff? Are you a care package? Because you must have fallen from heaven. Or, I hope angels know CPR because you take my breath away. A couple of these I've never actually ever heard of. This one, is that a ladder in your pantyhose or a stairway to heaven? Well, really bad. What about, what time do you have to be back in heaven? Achoo, sorry, I'm allergic to feathers. Oh, bollocks. Shush, Bob. Down, boy, down, boy. Some are worthy of only an eyebrow lift, right? And others I find genuinely funny. The truth doesn't mind being questioned. It's the lies that get offended. I love this too. Growth is when your ex isn't your type anymore. I love this. I love that very much because especially if you have an ex or you've had an ex or having an ex going through the process of, it is kind of interesting where someone that you really felt so much for, and there would have been a point in time maybe that you thought that you would be forever, and then over time things started to collapse, and then you realize that they're just really not your type anymore. Maybe they never were. Maybe it was for other reasons that you were bound together at the time, which is, if we get really honest, that is often what it is. So I think that did you fall from heaven? Is there an angel missing in heaven? I think at the time when I first heard that saying, I just thought it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But when that guy did say that to me, it ended up being someone that I was never going to forget. I mean, mostly because, unfortunately, he did die. And you know what happened after that too? His sister, she must have moved up north too, she wrote me a letter, and it was a really horrible letter, basically saying that it was my fault, that her brother would still be alive had I still gone out with him. And I mean, clearly she was feeling a bit grieved and all the rest of it. But I just remember just thinking, wow, someone took the time to write this and post it, and I got it. So if you're out there, thanks. So, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Finding that compatibility, sometimes it can fail simply because of timing, and they do say that timing is everything. Like my beau when I was 20, 21 and he was 19, it wasn't so much our ages per se, but we were young, too young for secret engagements. That engagement that I didn't know that I was engaged or anything. I mean, shock, horror. You really both need to be attracted to one another, that you love spending time together, rather than a temporary fix to whatever you're both not looking at. You can't polish a turd, right? Sometimes a person can tick a box because they're kind and don't want to know what's really going on with you because it suits their loneliness or whatever their story is. When you're encouraging someone, as in a partner, continually, like you're their mother, and they just can't accept your generosity of spirit, and in the process it completely erodes your beautiful natural confidence, then you're in toxic city. If you stay too long, you're going to have to find your way back. But just don't waste too much time and too much of your energy, doing that and trying to work your way back. I've been there, I've done that, and I know these are hard-earned lessons that, you're on a path, and next thing you sort of veer off. Imagine a tree. You're a tree, the tree trunk of life, and you veer off on other branches, and you might end up losing 2 years of your life trying to get someone to get where you're coming from or to understand what it is that you mean. In the end, when you're in a toxic situation, you're talking to yourself. They don't get it, they don't want to get it, and maybe they're unable to get it. I don't want this to be a blitz on, partners or, exes or whatever. It's just realities. At 60, I've broken some hearts in my time, as the saying goes. But the reality is this: they projected onto me who they wanted me to be, and when I saw that this was not gelling, I communicated, tried to get it right, out onto the table, so to speak. But what I used to do is I just tried too long, and I just had to accept that they were going to make me wrong. I was going to be called names: impatient, cranky, sensitive, bitchy, and far worse. You can just imagine. Any way they could, they were going to make me wrong. That's what it became, was just, well, we're just going to make you wrong, and then that's it, sorted. No, it's not. There was zero chance that they were going to open themselves up, mainly because there were no indications that they even recognised that as a concept. Myself personally, I run deep, so that leaves me floating way out at sea, just feeling completely misunderstood, unheard, etc. And in the end, you go, you know what? Kind of like it out here. Just keep your distance. Not that I'm advocating that, but I think there is a place for just finding out who you really are as opposed to how you are seen by others, because we can sometimes get their personality traits and their dreams and schemes all mixed in with our own, and in the end, you don't even know where they're coming and going. It's only when you've split up. And I remember that personally when my first marriage ended. It was some time after, a few months after, I realised there were certain things that I thought were my beliefs, and they weren't, and my opinions. They weren't. They were his, and it just took time to separate that, to come back to myself, I guess you could say, in some regard. So fairly soon into the relationship, loose description, I was wholly and solely the problem and had lost my angel status, so to speak. So here goes. Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? How's about, No, but I did scratch my kneecaps when I crawled up from hell. And if I was a unicorn, I'd shank you with my horn. No, I wouldn't, not really, but you know. In the end, you notice they don't call or text you anymore because, of course, they want to stay friends. And it really takes maturity and genuine kindness of soul that you're going to keep in touch in some manner. And you know what? Usually it's best that people just move on. They just go on their merry way, and you do too. But what's usually happened when they stop calling is they've found a new victim. Because if they're not making the changes within the relationship with you, they're just going to pretend to be somebody else with someone else till eventually they get fully exposed. And that's just how it goes. There's no, that's not brilliant thinking. It's just real obvious. You just notice the change and you accept it. No drama, no fights. You just walk away with a smile. Bottom line, they may think or attempted to strip you of everything you have, and they would be the first to go, oh, no, I didn't. I supported you, and I did this, and I did that. It's like, yep, whatever. But they can't take away your juice. So I say, it's not on me, it's in me. And that is something that no one can take. They can't fake it, they can't copy it. It's just, you just need to go on your little way there and just leave us people alone, the ones that just want to be around people that are kind, they are genuinely kind and are going out of their way to understand you, not going out of their way to set you up. When you know how much you bring to the table, when you know your strength of spirit, you can't be copied, you can't be repeated. And when you know your self-worth, it's easy to wave goodbye. It's easy to look to what lies before you, as in, your today, your future. I love that because I realised I really trust myself. If you line up all your exes in a row, you can see the flow chart of your mental illness. Oh my goodness, when I look back on my flow chart, I don't know where the hell I was at times, but I was growing. And I'm not looking back now with any regrets or, I could have done this differently or whatever. You only do what you can with what you know at the time. I don't know if you've heard that saying where you can't put an old head on young shoulders. When we go, oh, well, she's 23, she should know better by now. 23? 23 is really, 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 really young, really young. As is 30, as is 40. That's really young. Women, we're not really, really coming into our own until our early 40s. So, I think that's very exciting. Here I am, the big 60, the big 60, and I'm pretty sure I know who I am. But boy, I'm very open to learning. I'm really open to being impressed and being surprised and being delighted by, usually the most simplest things, because the most simplest things usually just hold, it's such an incredible innate beauty. I guess it goes hand in hand with gratitude, because feeling grateful and delighted by your surrounds, no matter how simple they are, can transform a common day, and you just feel grateful. And that is a really lovely energy when you're turning routine things into something that makes you feel happy, change ordinary opportunities into blessings. I was reading a poem this morning by Ralph Waldo Emerson from 1847. Whoso walketh in solitude and inhabiteth the wood, choosing light, wave, rock and bird, before the money-loving herd, into that forester shall pass from these companions power and grace. Aw, I just thought that was absolutely lovely. I have always loved poetry, pretty poetry, poetry that lifts the spirit, transcending everyday yuckiness, because I think how we're feeling in our mind is something that helps us through our day. King Solomon writes, "Poetry is the name of life. Poetry is artistry in motion, for it's not the accumulation of knowledge to which we're aspiring, but the ability to live life in a grander, more fluid, and more aristocratic fashion. to take charge through godliness in your inner demons and squeeze out all excess so that you may truly reign with princely power over your domain. Get control of all your faculties, handle addictions and patterns directly, and be free. Free to rule, free to live, and free to express your inward callings in boundless ways. It's pretty lovely, isn't it? Now, that sort of thing, to me, really, I just feel in my heart just this upliftingness. Just invented a word. Upliftingness? Oh, you didn't. Yes, I did, Bob. But these are the sort of things that I find so inspiring, where my eyes meet the words on the page, and especially if I read it out loud, take the time just to read it out loud, I can feel myself, feeling more uplifted and almost, I don't know, what would you say? Breathlessly inspired. Well, anyway, my Jarrah Marble dwellers and Jarrah Marble curious, this ends another episode. Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've had a great day. I hope you've done something wonderful for yourself and each other. And I look forward to catching up with you again. Say good day to the family and the cat for me. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.